Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We've seen the attitude as far as the Indian media is concerned. We've also seen Jaishankar's attitude generally, the verbal, vituperative attitude come out from the Indian media. We've also seen common statements following the graciousness with which Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari handled himself at the SCO summit. We'll be talking about the ramifications of the exchanges that occurred between the two foreign ministers. We'll also be talking about the reference particularly to the Kashmir issue and the way our stance on Kashmir was reiterated categorically by the Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari, the ramifications of this on the overall relationship, bilateral relationship between Pakistan and India, and what this means for the future as far as Pakistan and as a roadmap for our issues, our whole stance on Kashmir particularly. All of that today on Perspective. I have with me Dr. Awais bin Wasi, who's a Kashmir Affairs expert. Thank you for being with us today. We also have with us Shazia Anwer Cheema, who is an IR expert. Thank you for joining us today. And we'll also be joined by Dr. Jamil Khan, who is a former ambassador. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Awais, like I said, the attitude of the Indian media, of course, we've seen also to the statements and the way, the graciousness, the grace with which the Foreign Minister himself, our Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari handled himself. You've seen, with the whole visit, you've seen the way that he extended himself, and the later we've seen the attitude also as far as Jaishankar from India is concerned. We've also seen, talk of terrorism. We've also seen particular accusations of supporting terrorism, taking hypocritical postures. All of those things come out. We will, of course, be talking particularly about what this means as far as Kashmir is concerned. But how do you look at this overall in terms of the interaction and what this means, with the peace process generally, the way that we want to have the kind of relationship generally we would like to have in the region also?
Yes, given the deteriorating bilateral relations between India and Pakistan, especially after 5th of August 2019 and then the incident of Balakot. So it was the graciousness and generosity on the part of Pakistan that was extended by our Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. But the way he was responded to by Indian media as well as Indian Foreign Minister, that is unfortunate, and that indicates that Pakistan's flexibility, Pakistan's generosity, Pakistan's openness has not been responded in the same spirit. I think the way our Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari said that this issue of terrorism, in response to one question, this is not an issue which India dictates to us, because in SCO member we are the country which suffered the most because of that threat. And he mentioned clearly that I am standing there as a victim of terrorism. So there is no such dictation which is required by India or any other country. Pakistan is committed to do that. And whether it happens in the country or any other part of the world, so Pakistan is very much committed to that. But when it comes to, when he also particularly mentions, but I think
particularly, I want to come back to that. I want to talk more about that. Let me go to Shazia. Shazia, particularly, when we have Modi as the Prime Minister of India, when we have the whole history of him being, the butcher of Gujarat is not very long ago. How do you look at the ramifications of this exchange? Do you agree with what Dr. Awais is saying? Of course, generally speaking, what would you like to add to that?
I would like to add that it could have been a very great opportunity for India to remedify whatever the world is thinking about India. My voice is echoing and coming back to me, so
I can hear you loud and clear. I can hear you.
So my point was that it was a great opportunity for India to negate the idea of that India cannot be a stakeholder of a bigger organization. So India was specifically hosting the SCO for 2023, and SCO has nothing to do with the bilateral relations. And as you have seen that over the Indian media and the political Indian narrative, it overshadowed everything else, and on their media it was just Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and blame game and bashing and defaming, and I don't know what they wanted to achieve from that, but they actually what they get from that is the outer perspective of like they are unable to handle multilateral issues. So it was nothing about Pakistan and Kashmir and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari. They have to show some maturity and diplomatic understanding about the situation.
Do you think, Shazia, that this has more to do with, the way that Pakistan is embroiled in their domestic politics invariably when it's election year, and that is next year for India? Do you think it has something to do with that?
It could be. It could be. I mean, there could be a possibility. But even then, SEO is a platform which was not about just Pakistan. So India should have this in mind that this is not just about Pakistan, and why we are putting Pakistan on a center stage by discussing Pakistan and Bilawal Bhutto Zardari and what Pakistan has to do and what Pakistan is doing and what Pakistan should do. I mean, there are other 4 or 5 countries, three observer countries, six dialogue partners. So there are multiple countries and they are discussing the frame of reference of SEO, and which is not bilateral, and which is like regional peace, economic development, and cooperation, and art and culture and people to people connection. So do you think India has discussed anything about people to people connection, art and literature, connectivity? Even the Jay Shankar has criticized, in a very strange way, in a very theatrical way, about the comment of Bilawal Bhutto Zardari when he said that, Mr. Bhutto said, talk about the CPAC and whatever that is. We understand that connectivity is very important, but we cannot allow connectivity on the sovereignty of our borders.
Do you think, I want to talk more
find
about this, and do you think it'll have ramifications, potential ramifications for the G8 conference also that they plan to have
G20.
host? Right, let me, G20,
G20.
sorry, let me come back to you. I will come back to you. I'm going to go to Dr. Jamil. Dr. Jamil, do you think that this has, this falls within the diplomatic norms, the way that, the attitude of Jay Shankar and the way, the clear, the way that he reacted to the foreign minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari's statement, the attempt to rebuke, of course, it put him in a terrible light overall. But how do you think it overall looks at? How do we look at it in the light of the diplomatic norms, in your experience, in your opinion?
India was a host country in SEO, and with no diplomatic standard, one could say that India was right in what they've been saying and what the kind of wordings and the kind of phrases they've been using against our foreign minister and against Pakistan. But before I proceed further, I'll have to really first segregate two things. One is the SEO formal proceeding, and the second is the press conference. In the formal proceeding, the country's name were not taken by India or by Pakistan for that matter. And in the press conferences, yes, there were bashing. And in the press conference, it was more of the electoral, directed towards the electoral campaign of the coming election in India, because India has always been thriving on the Pakistan bashing and trying to, muster their voting support before the election. So there is nothing new in it. That was expected, but India wanted to kill two birds with one stone. One was the election, the forthcoming election in India. They wanted to start their the same rhetoric of Pakistan bashing. The second point is, since India is a SEO member, the only member which is also a part of Quads, and the only member which is aligned through the defense agreement and so many other agreements with the United States. The only member which is a member of the string of alliance, which is India, Philippines, Australia, Japan. So if we keep this in our mind, India, while Indian Foreign Minister was deliberating in the formal proceedings of the SCO, the wordings which he has used is also in a way to show it to the countries with which India is aligned, that India, while being in SCO, is protecting the interest, or at least is not compromising the interest of the countries with which it is aligned, such as United States and the other countries which I just named. So this is the second aspect. The third aspect is the SCO proceedings. What I noticed was that it remained within the ambit of Article 2 of the Charter of SCO. And Article 2 is that the countries, if there is any dispute, have to resolve it through the peaceful dialogue. And because of which, Prime Minister, our Foreign Minister, mentioned about the violation of international law in the formal proceeding of SCO, and his indication was towards India, where it violated in Kashmir the international law by abrogating the Article 7, 370 and 35A. On the other side, Shankar started repeating the same kind of rhetoric. They came up with the same rhetoric that cross-border terrorism should be stopped.
Let me interject here. Is it normal for him to talk about cross-border terrorism and, you know, indicating, of course, that it's coming from our side in this manner, in a conference, in the background of a conference like the SCO at all?
Well, the members, they understand it, but the deviation of Article 3 did not take place unless he had taken the name of the country, that is Pakistan, or China for that.
So you're saying within the technicality, he was playing within the technicality of it, he was trying
That's
to stay
right.
within
But he clarified the thing, you know. We have to connect his press conference with the formal proceeding wordings, what he has used in the SCO formal proceedings and the speech. You know, one has to connect that. During the press conference, what he has said is about the Chinese also, that the border dispute and the friendship cannot go together. And with the Kashmir, again the same rhetoric of and he crossed all the limits, in fact, of the diplomatic norms. So, as I said, that it was basically the political campaign, more of a political campaign than the foreign minister's language, what he was using, that he would not like to sit with the violators of the law, and he would not like to sit with the perpetrators of the terrorism, being a victim of terrorism. So, what is the remedy? As you were asking the other guests, other panelists,
I want to come to that. I want to talk about that. I will come back to you. Let me go to Dr. West. I want to talk a little bit about Kashmir also, in the light of what was said, in the light of the reiteration by the Foreign Minister Bilawal Bhutto Zardari on our stance on Kashmir. How do you overall look at this from that perspective?
You know, this reiteration of the Pakistan's just position was made by the Foreign Minister very clearly, very candidly, and rationally, and dispassionately. The journalist tried a lot to provoke him, but who remained firm on rational grounds and tried to convince him with the legal grounds which this issue enjoys.
He talked about, I mean, he kept on talking about resolutions, and he said you can't look at it piecemeal, you have to look at it as a whole.
Exactly. When he asked about that, are you committed with the particular part of resolution, demilitarization, and our Foreign Minister said that instead of taking these things in isolation, you have to see all these resolutions, all the content of the resolution, and Pakistan abides by all these resolutions adopted by UN Security Council resolution. And he very candidly mentioned that it was not the violation of that, it was also the bilateral agreement between India and Pakistan. So this reiteration by Pakistan Foreign Minister gives a very positive, very encouraging signal to Srinagar, and it gives a message that Pakistani people and the state of Pakistan is still up and still they are there for the people of Jammu and Kashmir and for their rights. And he also particularly mentioned those incidents, especially the one which was later on, previously that was discussed by the former governor, that one terror incident that was exploited for political gains over there. So incidents took place in Kashmir, and their own people, they were involved due to negligence and carelessness. That incident took place, and after that, that incident was being exploited, and still they are being exploited, because in India, if Lok Sabha elections are not taking place, so there are elections of provincial assemblies or state assemblies are going on from time to time. So they are exploiting these terrorist incidents, and they try to
for their local politics,
for the local politics, for the domestic consumptions. So I think that this candid stance, but based on facts, it was not the propaganda. The important thing that must be highlighted is that it was not the propaganda discourse. It was quite a rational approach adopted by our foreign minister, and I think that it must be taken seriously by the concerned quarters.
And you think that it sends a strong, of course, not that it's ever been doubtful, but it sends a strong signal of our commitment to the Kashmiri cause and how important it is for Pakistan. It reiterates that very vocally, even though this is perhaps even at a summit like the SCO, where it becomes the foremost agenda, as far as Pakistan is concerned. Even though it's not on the agenda, this is what was said. It was reiterated unequivocally as far as Pakistan is concerned. Let me come back to you on that. I'm going to go to Shazia. Shazia, do you think it's at the background where Pakistan is committed to wanting and ensuring regional peace? This is not a surprise, but then invariably this is the kind of attitude we get from across the border. In that kind of a scenario, what are the options then open for us?
It's not just the matter of we want peace. India has problem with the idea that we can deliver peace, and in that entire scenario, the panic and the euphoria was all about the isolation, diplomatic isolation of India. And let me explain how. Like in SCO, we have very good relation with China. We have fairly cordial, functional relation with Russia. We have very good relation with Central Asia. We have excellent relation with the new member UAE. So in comparison, India was isolated between global South and global East. And global South is basically getting stronger and stronger day by day, and India wants to get hold of the West as well, and also wants to get hold on this region as well. Let me add something. Every country in the member state of SCO can propose agenda points. And one interesting agenda point by India was reforming the SCO, and it was very ironical and farcical for me, like how and what India is thinking about to reform in SCO after destroying the SARC. And our audience remember that SARC is a dysfunctional organization because of the maneuvering and monopoly of the India. So the entire, as an observer, what we are seeing, and I will disagree with the Mr. Ambassador here a little bit, like it does not matter you take name in the press conference and you didn't take name inside the deliberations, that doesn't matter. The thing which matters is that how they are portraying the entire picture. And by being in the West, what I am seeing on the media is that SCO 2023 foreign minister meeting was all about Pakistan and India. But it was not like that. And India has done this to itself like by themselves. And it is not good for them. That's my another naive opinion. They could have avoided that. Why they put so much spotlight on Pakistan? just on the basis of their animosity and their aggression toward Pakistan. But I think it will backfire them, and it has backfired them. It has to be multilateral. It has. There are so many countries in SCO. Why just Pakistan and Bilawal Bhutto and your entire media is
Hmm.
discussing a same issue of terrorism?
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
Bilawal Bhutto Zardari is asking you to provide the proof of the your state funding terrorism, but why discuss the terrorism in the terms of who is funding terrorism, who is facilitating terrorism? Why not discuss it unilaterally for the purpose SEO has been
Especially
created? So
because we've seen what happened as far as Kulbhushan Yadav is concerned. We've seen the TTP, the operation, where it's coming from. All of those things
and the
are right there
Samjhota
also.
Express, we have provided
Hmm.
in the Samjhota,
Hmm.
we have provided
Hmm.
all the evidence. So we have so many things to talk about, but that
Hmm.
was not the platform to talk about. And that's
Hmm.
how maturely Bilawal Bhutto Zardari has dealt with the situation. He didn't dwell into,
Hmm.
pointing finger on India. He had
Hmm.
bilateral sideline meetings. He had many other things, but the picture what India has portrayed is like, I don't know it was in the wake of that G20 meeting or not,
Hmm.
but whatever they have done is like there is so much
And
between
there has
India
to
and
be, and
Pakistan.
whether we, domestically speaking, across the board also, we need political unity on this, and we need a mature attitude towards the interaction, the way that it was made, the way, the graciousness with which it was made, the way that, overall he conducted himself as the foreign minister of Pakistan attending the SCO summit. And that was the agenda, quite frankly. Let me
And
come
that
back
that
to.
has to be the agenda. Yes, I'm sorry, I have to go somewhere, so I will take my leave
Right,
now,
right.
if you
Thank you so
allow.
much for your opinion. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to go to Dr. Jamil Khan. Ji, uh, Dr. Jamil, you heard, I hope you heard what Shazia is saying. She's
Yes,
saying also that
correct.
this
I did.
has, of course, domestic connotations, it has domestic consequences, and the reasons for the kind of attitude that came from across the border. Regardless of that, do you think it's going to, for us to plan a course of action in the background of an attitude where, where constant attempts to ensuring regional peace, ensuring regional peace, are met with this kind of an attitude? We have to function within that framework. So what do we do?
That's right. Again, probably we should not be mixing the charter of SCO and
Hmm.
its proceedings under
Hmm.
the charter, as well as
Hmm.
the press conference. Press conference is altogether pole apart from each other. Although the Shankar wanted to justify whatever he said without taking any name, and of course, Bilal Bhutto Zardari also further dilated in his press conference his point of view. But my point in the last segment was that all the regional organizations, such as SCO, such as ECO, such as GCC, or European Union, they are under some rules and regulation. And that is the Charter of United Nations, Chapter 8, under which all are they formed. And then they have their own charter and framework to proceed with in all such summit and the meetings. So SCO meeting, there were other members also. The J. Shankar could not deviate from that, although he was a host. And then once the meeting was over, he started bashing Pakistan. Now, what shall we do and what remedies we shall we have? SU members, they quite well understand that why it's being done. It's the India that SARC has not become functional at all because of that attitude. Now, this attitude which has been shown by the India, we can do Pakistan and the other countries. They can do three things. One, that a human right violation is number one factor about which even latest religious freedom report of the Religious Freedom Commission of the United States, it says that what India is doing and how it is violating. There are two big volumes of the Human Rights Council, which is again United Nations organization. So that also indicates what we have submitted 131 pages dossier, and there are numerous documents of international organization, including Amnesty International and other human rights. So all these documents, we should base our argument at all international platforms under three headings. One, that through the public diplomacy, which is what he did, Jay Shankar, through the press meeting. And then second is the legal diplomacy, which means that we should go and knock the door of the Human Rights Council and also move the resolution in the Security Council and the General Assembly. And third one is the traditional diplomacy, under
Dr.
which we
Jamil,
should not only the
do you agree that a lot of the attitude that came from Jay Shankar or overall was because they were feeling out of place, like Shazia also said. She said that we enjoy great relations with most of the states in the SCO. India, on the other hand, perhaps was feeling isolated.
Well, India obviously should feel isolated because India is a member which is trying to scale into at one time. And India is basically part of the containment of China. China is a very big player of the cooperation organization. So obviously they would feel that, but at the same time they were trying. The Indians were trying through their foreign minister to make a mileage by pleasing their allies, as I was mentioning it in the last segment also. So they did both these things, and the third thing, the third milestone they wanted to, or the goal they wanted to achieve, was the constituency, the election, forthcoming election, in which they want to be seen as the leadership which could bash Pakistan and we can take Pakistan on. So that was their domestic politics which came in. That was their engagement with the Quads members and with the Awais members and with other members of the West, which are aligned towards the containment of China. We are not aligned towards the containment of China. All other members, including the members of ECO, because the SCO members and ECO members, they have so many common causes. ECO members, there are 5 members of SCO who are also member of the ECO: Afghanistan, Azerbaijan, Iran, Turkey, and Turkmenistan. They are the member of ECO. Now, ECO has certain agendas which harmonizes with the SCO charter, and which particularly in terms of connectivity and the trade. So all these countries obviously would not like what India and what Indian foreign minister has mentioned and the attitude he has shown. But he was doing it for, as I said, for the general international politics, particularly those who are towards the containment of China and his own domestic politics.
I'll come back to you. Dr. Awais, overall, as far as this conference is concerned, G20, the way India is planning it, how are the Kashmiris looking at it? If you've been in touch with anyone, overall, what is the feedback?
In fact, Kashmiris, they think that India, by exploiting its presidency of G20, tries to project that thing internationally, especially among the G20 countries, that everything is normal in Jammu and Kashmir, in occupied Jammu and Kashmir. So, as a matter of fact, Kashmiris believe that India tried these things earlier as well. For example, through assembly elections, state assembly elections, India tried to project internationally that now look, a kind of referendum, a kind of plebiscite, because India considers that tantamount to referendum and plebiscite. So people are participating in it, people are voting, they are electing their representatives, so there is no problem. But even after 1987, even after 2002, even after 2008, when it was estimated that 60% people they took part, but after that there was a mass uprising. So the thing is that they are quite sure that India, by doing so, by doing these machinations, perhaps cannot mislead the world community and cannot dilute the freedom sentiment of the Kashmiri people, number one. Second thing is about G20. I think as perhaps we have discussed earlier, that it's a high time that we should do robust and active diplomacy, and we should apprise G20 members about the sensitivity and the implications it might have with regard to the credibility of this institute, because Kashmir is not something which has some doubt about it, because it's a internationally recognized dispute, and some G20 members, they are part of the resolutions adopted in United Nations, and some countries, Muslim countries, they also, for example, Saudi Arabia has been strongly been advocating in the OIC contact group. Same is the case with Turkey and China. So the thing is that I think that it's high time that these people, these countries, these member states, they should be apprised about these sensitivities. And the second thing we mentioned earlier, and I want to reiterate here, is that India would try to include Kashmir in the joint communique in G20. I think Pakistan should make all possible efforts that word Kashmir or anything which has some implication with Kashmir could not be included in the joint communique.
Okay, fair enough. Let me go to Dr. Jamil. Dr. Jamil, you know, of course, if do you think that this condition, if we include it, if you've been following what Dr. Awais is saying, will have the desired consequences for us particularly, and the kind of reaction we would like?
No, we definitely have a principled stand, and in order to have that principled stand, we should, as a matter of fact, G20, it's a violation, and it's a very well articulated violation of Geneva Convention Article 49, where the disputed territory, they cannot have external activities on the disputed territory. Now, G20, they are the proponent of the human right. And if we make them conscious, and if we through the traditional diplomacy, if we inform them, and if we convince them that, look, you know, there are Human Rights Commission report. If Pakistan could be a party with India, but then Human Rights Commission and the Human Rights Council, they are not the party to India and Pakistan. Please go through their report. Please go through the report of Secretary General, in which what kind of a human rights violation he has mentioned, that the 14 million pellets were fired and 4,000 people were blinded with the pellets firing, and so on. And I can keep going on about the extrajudicial killing and about the rape and about everything is documented. So Pakistan, it's very rightly said that Pakistan has to make these member countries conscious. There are 3 Muslim countries, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia and Turkey. Turkey has always been...
What about the consequences? I mean, we have to be cognizant of the realities, economic realities also at this time, as far as India is concerned, as a potential market for the world, its place, its clout, all of those things.
And they are fully exploiting it, we know that. But there is no room in the world if their own people and if their own countrymen, if their own think tank and if their own civil society of respective countries, if they become cognizant about the human rights violation, which, as I'm saying, is tabulated and documented quite well, that is our strength. And that's our huge interest. We can table that in front of all these member countries and let them know that any presence there could tantamount that we are stepping into a territory which is disputed and where so much of human rights violation has taken place, as it is documented by the United Nations.
Do you think it can? Okay, let me go to Shazia and I'll come back to you. Shazia, do you think it can be taken up at the UN level also?
I think it can be, but we have so much other things on our plate. So, if you just take these issues to the UN, I don't think that it will work that way, and we should not be that hopeful about the UNO, because UNO is very trial and tested for us. So we have to resolve our issues by our own, with new alignments, with new resources, with new polarity. So the old things are not working now. So I don't think we should look up to them.
So what do you mean? I mean, in terms of, you're saying the old measures, perhaps the old strategies are not so much effective at this time. What are, you know, in your opinion, a change in strategy? What would you indicate? What would you think is is the direction we should be looking for?
Now the word is looking, and word should look for personal interest. What we think about for better for us, and what the other think that's better for them. So we cannot have this unipolarity, like your friend is my friend and your enemy is my enemy. So that's the old thing and old ways, and it is not going to work again. India is a little bit into this situation right now and trying to follow the old rules as much as India can. But again, we have seen that it is also having this problem in Russia-Ukraine war, and it's now it is very difficult to say the name of your friend and enemy out loud. It's difficult. You cannot do that, and countries are not supposed to thinking about doing that. They are realigning their alignments on the basis of their geopolitics, their personal geopolitics, and now there is no global geopolitics. So Pakistan will do what suits Pakistan. Pakistan will not do what suits someone across the seas,
Of course, it's about personal interest. You're saying, and it should be primarily about what suits us and not what suits our friends. That's what essentially what you're saying. And we have to, right? Fair enough. Thank you so much, Dr. Shazia. I know that you're busy. Thank you for joining us and your time overall. Dr. Awais, I'm running out of time, but your quick comments before we close.
With regard to?
With regard to Kashmir, of course.
In terms of Kashmir, that as we discussed earlier, that this new statement coming from the foreign minister in the land of India, I think this reiteration, as I mentioned, that it gives a positive signal, and it also gives signal to the international quarters that how Pakistan
is not going to back down
demonstrates flexibility and keeping in view the the steps or the unilateral kind of things that done by India. So I think that in this context, this as we discussed G20 and all these things happening around Kashmir, I think that Pakistan foreign minister should continue taking up and continue advocating the traditional conventional position.
Thank you so much for being with us, Dr. Awais bin Wasi. Thank you for joining us, Shazia Anwer Cheema. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Jamil Khan. Thank you for being with us today. Overall, of course, Kashmir remains the center of the issue as far as Pakistan-India is concerned. The SCO summit concludes with India looking rather foolish, ungracious in the face of Pakistan, which extended itself primarily under the umbrella of the SCO, and also, of course, because regional peace remains a commitment for us. I think that is for all to see, and certainly this is a welcome step in trying to show the world where we are as far as peace is concerned, how important it is for us today as it has always been. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.
Thank you.